The Construction, Design and Management Regulations 2015, more commonly known as CDM 2015. When these regulations were introduced, they brought with it a number of changes from the previous CDM 2007. Changes included how CDM applies to clients, new named roles, responsibilities, legal duties and documentation requirements. Given the sheer scale and reach of the regulations, it's no surprise that whilst acting as a health and safety consultant, I often come across misunderstanding and general confusion around CDM. In this video, I'm going to give you a very surface overview of CDM 2015. I'll talk through some of the common areas of confusion, shed light on CDM requirements, and look at the named roles within it. This video definitely isn't going to be a Bible on all things CDM. I'll be covering the different named CDM roles and their responsibilities in detail in a series of separate future videos. My aim with this video, I want to keep fairly simple. I'm hoping that after you finish watching, you'll come away with just a little bit of useful CDM knowledge that you didn't have previously. So, when do CDM regulations apply? Working as a health and safety consultant, this is a question I get asked a lot, and it's where I find some confusion and mix up with another part of CDM which I'll come on to. And the short answer is that CDM applies to all construction projects, from concept right through to completion, and that's regardless of size or duration. And in terms of what counts as construction work, the HSE provide this definition. Construction work means the carrying out of any building, civil engineering or engineering construction work, and includes the following arrangements from A right through to E. You can see, taking a look at these detailed arrangements, that the definition is broad and covers a wide variety of project types. So whether it's a conservatory being built in your back garden or construction of a multi-storey block of flats, CDM regulations apply, and that's true whether the work is domestic or commercial. What is important to understand though is that the HSE expects CDM requirements to be applied proportionately, and that's to the nature, scale, complexity and overall risk of the project itself. Going back to that conservatory example, the expectations under CDM will be far less for that type of project than for the construction of a high-rise block of flats. Same regulations, but very different level of application. Now, I know that CDM applies to all construction work. However, I think that some confusion stems from another part of CDM, and that's something called an F10 notification. Certain projects, when they meet specific thresholds set out in Regulation 6 of CDM, must be notified to the HSE. A project is notifiable to the HSE if it meets the following criteria: lasts longer than 30 working days and has more than 20 workers working on site at any one time, or exceeds 500 person days of construction work. This information is to be found out before the project starts. An F10 notification doesn't mean that once a HSE are notified, they will automatically be turning up on site. It simply notifies a HSE that a project exists, shares key safety information, allows them to monitor higher risk work, and helps promote accountability amongst the parties involved in the project. Notification is done via the HSE website, and you'll answer a series of initial questions and then provide details about the project and those involved. Upon submission, you're provided with a project-specific reference number, and you can log back in later to make updates if things changed on the project. In the introduction, I mentioned that CDM has named roles. These are known as duty holders, and each has specific legal responsibilities. Duty holders under CDM are client, designer, principal designer, principal contractor and contractors. Running through these for an overview, we'll start with a client. CDM defines a client as anyone for whom a construction project is carried out. This includes both domestic and commercial clients, although the responsibilities of client do differ between the two. The client's key duty is to make sure that the project is set up so that from start to finish it's managed in a way that properly controls risks to health and safety. To summarise client duties, they must allow sufficient time and resources for the project, make sure relevant information is prepared and shared with other parties involved, and ensure that welfare facilities are provided. If more than one contractor will be involved in a job, the client must appoint further CDM roles known as principal designer and principal contractor. If this is not done, the client will automatically take on their responsibilities. As we mentioned, CDM does apply to domestic clients, but the legal burden is much lighter. In most cases, duties of a domestic client are transferred to the contractor completing the work or the principal contractor on larger projects. Moving on to the role of designers. Designers play a really important role under CDM. And when I say designer, what automatically comes to mind for you? For many people, including myself, it's someone like this guy. A structural engineer, an architect, CAD drawer, or someone completing 3D modelling. And whilst that is true, the definition is much broader under CDM. Under CDM, a designer is any individual or organisation that prepares or modifies a design or arranges for someone else to do so. That means you might be carrying out design work without realising it. For example, if you're a client or a contractor and you specify a particular roofing system, wall type, floor build-up or window specification, you're taking on some designer responsibilities. Designers are in a unique position whereby they can design out risk. By identifying risks early on, designs can be changed or adapted to reduce risk for those building, maintaining or using a structure. A simple example is lighting placement. If a design requires a full scaffold to be put up just to change a light bulb, could that design be changed or altered in such a way that maintenance could be done without working at height? A lower placement of a light, for example. This process of designing out risk may be coordinated by another duty holder, and that role is the principal designer. Earlier, I said that CDM applies from concept right through to completion. The principal designer role mainly sits in that early pre-construction phase, before building work takes place. This is important because health and safety should be considered as early as possible, and not discovered only when construction starts. The principal designer helps the client gather and collate pre-construction information, such as ground surveys, investigations, buried service reports, and asbestos surveys. They are also required to ensure that designers are identifying, eliminating, and controlling risks, often through design review meetings. Where more than one contractor is involved, the principal designer must prepare a document known as a health and safety file. The health and safety file contains information needed to ensure the health and safety during future work on a building, such as maintenance, refurbishment, or demolition. This might include things as cable routes, roof safety systems, any remaining asbestos left in the building, or equipment servicing regimes. As a project moves from pre-construction into construction, the principal designer must work closely with another duty holder role of principal contractor. During this stage, there must be a handover of relevant pre-construction information, which has been obtained from the client. While a principal designer manages health and safety during pre-construction, the principal contractor takes control during the construction phase, once building starts taking place. The role of principal contractor applies where there is more than one contractor involved in a project, and there should only ever be one principal contractor at any one time. You'll often hear this role being called main contractor. For example, on a housing development, the principal contractor might manage the project overall, while specialist contractors carry out items such as bricklaying, roofing, electrical work, plumbing, and so on. The principal contractor's role is to plan, manage, monitor, and coordinate health and safety on site. In practice, this includes providing welfare facilities such as canteens, toilets, delivering site inductions, ensuring site rules are followed, coordinating contractor work and safety, and managing and maintaining site security. They also have a duty to develop a document known as a construction phase plan. This is commonly abbreviated to CPP. Previously, we talked about pre-construction information being gathered by the principal designer from the client. That information feeds directly into the construction phase plan. It's a document that outlines how health and safety will be managed during construction. The plan must be proportionate to the size, nature and risks of the project. And the CPP isn't a document that's written once and that's it. As a project progresses and things change, the plan should be updated and reviewed accordingly. Finally, we have contractors. Under CDM, a contractor can be an individual, a sole trader, a self-employed person, or a business that carries out, manages or controls construction work. Contractors must ensure that work under their control is planned, managed and carried out safely. If there is only one contractor on a project, they are responsible for preparing the construction phase plan and managing site safety. And if contractors carry out any design work, such as designing a scaffold, they take on designer duties. And you can see now how tightly woven and interlinked these CDM roles really are. Where contractors are working under a principal contractor, they must cooperate with site-specific health and safety arrangements and follow agreed site rules. And what we've covered here today is very much a surface level overview of CDM and how it applies. Even at this stage, you can see that there is lots of roles, responsibilities and nuances that depend on the size, scale and complexity of the project. As mentioned earlier, I'll be producing a series of follow-up future videos, which will go into much more detail on the different duty holders and other CDM requirements. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if there's anything further you'd like detail on, leave a comment below and I'll see what I can do. And if you're interested in working together, you can find me on LinkedIn or head to my website below, riskop.co.uk. Thanks again for watching and I'll see you all soon.